Let's look at some other survey considerations. One is related to coding, and we mentioned coding a little bit earlier. And coding, let's say you have a scale like this. In this case, we have from 0 to 5. We've provided the respondent a don't know, and we've provided the respondent a neutral. Sometimes I think of this as neutral is I have the information, I just don't have an opinion. Whereas don't know is not only do I not have an opinion, but I don't have the information either. I really don't know. I don't know enough to have an opinion. Whereas neutral, I interpret as I have the information, I just don't have an opinion. Anyway, when it comes to coding, like I mentioned, anything that can be ordered from more to less, I like to make sure that the things that are less have the lower codes. Strongly disagree, lower on the agree-disagree scale. So what you could do over here, this is basically a forced response. If you only provide the respondent these 4 choices, you are forcing them to have an opinion. And sometimes that's desirable. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying it depends on your research questions. Also, another consideration, consider positive or negative wording of the question. If the question is positively worded and they agree with the statement, then it's probably a good idea to have it coded, as I mentioned, let it on the higher end. If the question is negatively worded and they're agreeing with it, then it's probably would be better to code those on the low end. And you will come across having to face these decisions in the survey design project. Some other considerations. One thing that helps survey projects is to test the surveys. And testing the instrument can help determine that the questions are of quality, that they have the characteristics of good question design, that you are measuring what you intend to measure. So pre-testing or piloting your instrument could be a critical step in your research process. So consider that if this is the data collection method you intend to use. You want to pilot the instrument on a sample of people or on individuals that closely represent the overall study sample, the people that you intend to generalize the findings to. So for instance, for our employee engagement survey, we tested the instrument with about 5 employees from across the institution before we sent it out to 700 employees. That way we could figure out how long did it take, were there any questions that were worded unclearly, were there any ordering in the questions that didn't make sense, and those 5 people provided that feedback and helped us to improve the instrument. Some more considerations. To encourage respondents to take the survey, you could do a number of things. You can offer a cover letter that explains the survey, how long it will take, what it will be used for. People tend to want to know that information before they start providing information. You can ensure that survey respondents' information will be confidential or even anonymous. So for example, in the employee engagement survey that I just talked about, this was the introduction to the employee engagement survey that we had. So here we are saying, here, this is what it is. We are thanking them. Excuse me. We talk about the responses being confidential. We also talk about the responses being anonymous to anyone at the college. We tell them ahead of time how many questions there are and how long it will take. And if there's any additional information you want to provide. The hard thing about instructions, if you've ever taken a survey, do you read the instructions? Not everybody does. And so it's something that you want to think about as you design a survey and write instructions. We typically, I'd say respondents typically do not read all the way through the instructions. So the simpler and the shorter, the better. So when it comes to research design and talking to your respondents, before you create the surveys, it's important to know what you think your data is going to be used for. Respondents like to know that. Don't ask questions for the sake of surveying. And any data that can be collected in a different way does not need to be asked of the respondent. For instance, on the employee survey, we ask questions related to attitude, beliefs, and values. And we didn't need to ask where they work, what department they're in, how long they've been at the college. We didn't have to ask any demographics because we have that information. We can get that information in a different way. Same thing is true on student surveys for the research that I'm involved in. In student surveys, for instance, the student satisfaction survey, I have all the demographic information. I know what their major is. I know how many credits they have at the college. I don't have to ask the students that information because I can get it out of the student data system. I need to ask the students the questions that only they can answer. How satisfied were you with the academic advising this semester? Questions like that. One item for discussion that you could chat with each other about and with me, do you think that it's more encouraging for a respondent to be promised anonymity or confidentiality when it comes to their responses on a survey? What's the benefit to the respondent? What's the benefit to the researcher? What's the benefit to the researcher of having to promise only confidentiality as opposed to anonymity? What do those mean? Anonymity means that you don't know who the respondent is. And so on that last slide, when I said you might know the demographics, if the survey responses are anonymous, you don't know the demographics. You don't know who that respondent is. Confidentiality is you know who the respondent is, but you are promising not to share that respondent's information in any way, shape, or form. What do you think about that? That's it for survey questions, introduction to survey research and survey design. Next, we're going to talk about the survey design project.